December 17th, 2025. This is the S&P 500 E-futures mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. This is what the chart looked like today. Clearly there's a down channel or down slope. Looks like it was a push down sideways, another push down, kind of a spike and then a gradual channel sideways, push down and then more sideways. This is how I drew up the chart. Leg, sideways, leg, kind of a couple bounces, another sideways area. This part was a little confusing because it didn't create consistent highs and consistent lows. So it's hard for me to figure out exactly where the high and low of a possible range was. But there were localized areas of support and resistance. I ended up using some of those. And then pushes down into the close. Well, pushes down and then kind of moves sideways, a small bounce in the after hours. This big gray down channel didn't get established until much later when I kind of drew it, but then by then it didn't really help to act as any key entry points for a trade. I took a total of 2 trades, one right here and right here, and they're both profitable. They're just very conservative 1-point scalps with runners. So the I got to say, like early on, probably the first couple of hours right here, the EMA felt like it wasn't really reliable. So I really needed trend lines or channels that were super accurate. And unfortunately, I didn't really get that because I had to keep drawing different trend lines to see how things would pan out. I'm going to get into the trades right now. So the pre-market, let's see. Pre-market, there was like a push up, break, another push up. Look at it's 2 legs, kind of on the second leg, create a spike in a gradual channel, sideways consolidation, one push down, pull back, second push down, but this is just choppy. There was no economic data today that really moved the market, so it was just kind of a busy, noisy day. So it hits the pre-market, well, it hits a pre-market high, but comes down on this orange down channel, creates a localized low. It's a first entry short, pullback. I marked a second entry short, but I called it an almost trade because I didn't really like the signal bar. It's green, so buyers were able to push it above its open. And right here, the EMA is cutting right through these. I would rather have had a setup where the candles, or the EMA in this case, was kind of like cutting at the top of this, and this signal bar was more bearish or closed at the low. Then I would have felt more comfortable seeing a first entry short, pullback, second entry short. There is a shortened trend channel here. And you could say it was like maybe one attempt on the smaller time scale. It's like a first attempt, second attempt at the high, and then reversing. But it did leave some room for interpretation, so I didn't like that. So it definitely was almost trade. Pushes down, hits this consolidation area. Here I thought there might have been a range setting up because there's a consistent lows, but the highs didn't fit exactly too well. But let's do this. So the highs, you could either put it here or a little bit lower if you wanted to. But in any case, there wasn't enough confirmation. I did draw this yellow down channel, which looks like one touch, almost a second touch, but at least it cut through one touch, localized two or three touches here, maybe a fourth touch here. Unfortunately, that didn't result in any kind of setup here. Pushes down. I was looking for something here. Again, you only get first entries. Pushes down, the green down channel breaks, attempt to the low, and it starts reversing. So this is the first break of this yellow down channel. But the yellow down channel itself, I'm not the biggest fan of because there's a lot of empty space here on the low side, and you're trying to look for reasons to go short. So it did have some confirmations on the high side, but the problem with it not being consistent on the low side is when it gets too close to any possible channel area, I'm not sure if there's going to be a bounce point. So I was playing with the number of these throughout the day. Looking at this is like, well, first of all, there's no second entries, and second of all, it's kind of not the cleanest price action right here. So it hits a localized high. You could argue there's like a visual first entry long pullback, second entry long, but there's really only a decisive first entry long here. It also made 2 legs up, pullback. You have a potential second entry long here. At least it even looks like a second entry long. Although on a technical count, it's really only a first entry because you have a first entry. But I thought it looks like a visual 1, 2. Unfortunately, this signal bar is red, so I had to leave that alone. You know, I can't reach for a setup when everything doesn't align. If everything was going for this trade and the only thing that was sketchy was this signal bar being red, but it's still closed bullish red, then there might have been a trade. But here, it's ambiguous. The EMA is kind of cutting through things. not really a technical second entry long. It's only really first entry. Then you get a second entry here, but it's a bad signal bar. So this just kind of nerfs the whole area. Like I'm not really looking to go long here yet. It's a localized high, creates a first entry long pullback. You don't really get a second entry long here because it's inside, so I saw it as a visual first entry. This one is continuation, even though this guy broke above this guy. The thing is, this candle never broke below this guy, so there's no pullback. So it's more of a visual first entry, pullback, potential second entry. Potential second entry, it has tested the low. EMA isn't really reliable, but I wasn't really feeling it. I'm going to mark it though, because I should have. Second entry long here. Maybe an almost trade or a possible trade here, but I didn't really like it, so skipped it. Pushes along. I thought there was a support area here, but then it broke below. Then I thought maybe there's a support area with this blue line. And again, I was thinking maybe there's setting up for trading range with this blue resistance line. And as you can see, I was trying to make something fit with this blue resistance line here because it looked like, for whatever reason, it was respected, small breakout, fail breakout here, comes back down. It's the same thing kind of along these lines when you get over to here, but it was a little bit not super clear. So it made it a little bit, it made me a little more conservative on taking trades. So it creates a localized high, pushes down, breaks, makes two attempts down, and then continues downwards. I never colored this in because it didn't quite fit well because the low side really only has one touch, almost a second touch confirmation. High side has a break and tested low, but it has already made two big legs down. So is it going to keep testing low? When I saw this in real time, I was thinking potentially, but because the overall bias looks like it's gradually selling off. The problem with this is, even though I think it might make a new low, I thought there might have been a pullback, and you do get a pullback here. There's no clean trade here. There is a new low, first entry short. You have a second entry short, but it's above the EMA. So when I saw this, I was looking for a lower high, but unfortunately, you don't get a lower high. By the time a lower high shows up, it's too far from the setup to really say it's confirming the second entry short because the lower high needs to be pretty much right here, one of these two candles. Then prices go down. There's another break of this orange down channel, two tests to the low. So I just noticed, okay, it's break of this guy, two tests to the low, pushes down, two legs up, pushes down, another two legs down. Clearly, the bias is bearish, but I don't have a good, I guess, channel established to feel confident I can, tell when a key entry point is valid other than the EMA. And I kind of mentioned today, the EMA wasn't super helpful. So I needed really clean, very accurate trend channel lines. And there was just a lot of short trend channels. So I didn't really feel there were a lot of good setups early on. So it pushes up in this orange up channel. Looks like it's one leg up pullback, second leg. There are a bunch of second entries, but they don't set up very well. It feels congested because these candles are essentially staying within their same range. Pushes up, localized highs, a first entry long pullback. Technically, you could say there might be a second entry long here, but it looks like it's first entry pullback, break, test low. Looks like it's a second entry, maybe a higher low here, but it does make the new low of day here. So first entry short, second entry short. I marked it as an almost trade because it's above the EMA. Overall bias is still bearish. I'm keeping that in mind, and it's just above the EMA. I needed a lower high up below the EMA to feel confident taking a short. It never shows up. Pushes up, moves up on this yellow channel, breaks on this orange down channel, and you look to the right and you're thinking like, man, or at least I'm thinking, this is really choppy. It's hard to really figure out where clean channel lines are. And if you draw them too big, they really don't confirm with too many touches. So it's hard to build a really clean, large, overarching channel. But you do know, at least in real time when you see this, there is clearly a sell-off going on. It's noisy though. So it hits, almost makes a double bottom here. It's a first entry short pullback, creates actually a second entry short triple test. Now I kind of went back and forth on thinking, is this a possible trade or an almost trade? I never took it. So ultimately I said it was an almost trade. Mainly the main reason is because it's a bad signal bar. And at the time, I wasn't quite convinced this is the high of this range, this guy right here, because it really only has two touch confirmations right here. Earlier on, I was thinking maybe there's going to be something here. Actually, this is established. I take that back. This is established much later, but it wasn't the cleanest and the clearest. There is a visual first entry, second entry. I wanted What might have pushed it in its favor for me to call it an impossible trade, or excuse me, a possible trade, is if this closed at the low. But it gave me a little bit of doubt, so I was looking for a lower high ideally. Get a lower high here, but you have to understand in real time, I'm confused because I see this as a lower high, but it's pushing into this localized support ambiguity area. So is it going to bounce here? I'm not sure, but it did get really close to this, or pretty much depending on how you drew it, there's this low here. So I don't want to sell into something like that. I'm going to change the color because I'm going to delete it later. So then it does break through. Didn't need to grab that handle. Pushes down, and it just gets a little confusing. So this support area doesn't feel that strong anymore. This resistance area, this resistance area doesn't feel that good. This support area doesn't feel that safe. Looks like it's localized high. First entry long pullback, second entry long. Second entry long, when I saw this, I was looking for a higher low, ideally pushing back above this red resistance, or maybe this low of day previous. But you get up here, it never gives you the higher low, pushes back down, and then reverses back up. So this is just very choppy, and I'm admittedly not skillful enough to quickly react and decipher all this. But it pushes up, comes down on this orange down channel. It looks like it's creating another support area here, which is kind of established by this darker blue one. Later, I moved it down to this lighter blue one, and I settled on this big blue area as the trading range. But this actually sets up for my one and only, no, excuse me, I took two trades. It sets up for my first trade. So localized high of a first entry long, pullback, second entry long. You technically might have a higher low here, but I also saw it as a localized low because you could do the technical count here. So like a first entry short pullback, second entry short. This low is actually lower than this one, so you can reset the count here. Plus, it gave you a clean following the rules reset here. New low, first entry short pullback, second entry short failure. I coupled it with the fact that this looks like a multiple test bounce off this support area. So whether the top of the range is here or here, I felt there's enough for 1 point scalp. So I entered my trade. Plus, I saw it as a potential higher low, confirming the first entry long pullback, second entry long higher low, although it did break below this guy. So I didn't really mark it as a higher low, but it does look like a failed second entry short multiple test. I entered one tick above this guy because it's a really nice signal bar. It moves up. It almost takes my trade here. So it doesn't, it kisses my trade. It's hard to see. There's a pink triangle here. Kisses my trade, ends up closing here, opens here. I forgot if it moved down slightly, but it did push up, fill my 1 point scalp. And it's hard to see here. There's another pink triangle here. This was a flash move up. So once it filled my 1 point profit target, I moved my stop straight to this entry plus one tick. And then I didn't have time to move my 3 point runner to be higher because usually I would drag it way high and then trace or trail my stop behind and try to scalp out a little bit more. But it's hard to see, but there's a pink triangle here at 1 point and another pink triangle here at 3 points. So it happened very quickly. Pushes up. I was thinking, is there a support a resistance area here? Could this be a failed breakout? Pushes to the high side. Let's shrink this down a little bit. Pushes out. I thought this was a failed breakout, so it actually should be marked as a failed breakout as well. And it moves back in. I was expecting maybe one leg, maybe 2 point correction, 2 leg correction, and another push down. So it actually pulls back, creates another failed breakout, and then comes down this way. Break this orange down channel, test the low. It's hitting this blue, this dark blue, and later established lighter blue range support. So I'm thinking, okay, it's going to bounce here, and it does. Creates a first entry short pullback, second entry short. I called an almost trade because it looks like it is 2 legs down. The thing I was concerned about is it created 2 failed breakouts here. Now, granted, the high side of the range could have been maybe established higher, but what I didn't like is if I put it up here, it really only confirms so late after this price action has occurred. So I wasn't that keen on calling this the top of the range, and I called these 2 failed breakouts because here it confirms a lot earlier. 1 touch, 2 touch, failed breakout, or even a sub superimposed range here, kind of some kind of resistance here. It was the same issue I was running in too with the low side, support side of the ranges. So it does create a second entry short. The thing, as I mentioned, I wasn't too sure is it's going to create a failed breakout here. Look at one leg down, pull back, second leg, two legs up. Maybe the EMA is going to hold. The EMA isn't reliable right now, so I wasn't really sure. So I called an almost trade, pushes back up, hits the high side. You have another failed breakout here. With three failed breakouts, that's when I did think, okay, maybe the top of the range, to try to make sure there's no failed breakout, is something along these lines. But it still looked a little weird because I still couldn't cover these two failed breakouts unless I moved it up high, which I mentioned doesn't really make me feel that great about the high side of the range. So I thought if there's two failed breakouts, then there's really no difference keeping this top of the range here or down here because I'm still going to get two failed breakouts, and I was only trying to cover this. So debated back and forth. Ultimately left it here. Whether the chart's drawn accurately or not, it didn't really affect my trading. But I do know that if it did get it up to here, and I was looking for a setup, and a setup trade does present itself, I would be debating like, is the high of the range actually higher or lower? But fortunately, that never came up. It pushes down, break of the orange down channel, test the low again. Just go ahead and scoot this over. It's bouncing off the support area, comes back up. It creates this setup that I actually tried to take. So it's a break of this orange down channel. It breaks for the first time below the dark blue and this light blue, and it comes down and matches this low. So it broke and created a new low of day right here, and it came and matched it. So when reversed up, create a first entry short, pull back. This is about to set up for second entry short, closes right at this blue line, which might be the one that's important, or this lighter blue one. So I waited, and what happened is it doesn't show it quite right now, but when this closed and it opened, it actually hopped. It tripped, it tripped down one tick. So there's actually a gap. So when I saw that, I dropped my order in at the low of this candle. So it opened here, it starts pushing down. When it starts pushing down, it already moves to the 1 point scalp I was looking for and then some. And I thought, well, I could wait for it to come back, pick me up, and then ask for it to do the exact same thing and move down one scalp. I decided to cancel the order. So as you can see, it opens here, pushes down, pushes back up, and then does close low. So I might have gotten out a little early, but once it already made the scalp move, then and I'm not on the trade, then I'm just going to let it go. If I did try to chase it, I'm not sure my stop would have been up here, but I didn't try to chase it, so I'm not sure if it would have played out. But then this is where it sets up for my second trade. Now I did have this trend line coming down. I didn't really trust it as a channel, so I had something like this superimposed on itself. I just extended it out just to think that this might be a range coming down. It's this support, this darker blue, and the low of this range is starting to show weakness. There's having trouble. There's prices violating it more successfully down here now. So when it created a localized high, created a first entry long pullback, second entry long technically has failed here. EMA is starting to act as a resistance. I mean, you can start the count from here, new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long, reset the count, first entry long, second entry long, second entry long technically has failed. It looks like it's pushing through this low support area. And the other thing I like is in the previous four candles, this actually achieved something that it had trouble before. It actually made a newer low. So it looks like there is some doubt. There is some sellers coming in that was able to progressively move this low of day one tick lower. So when I saw this, I thought, is there enough room for 1 point scalp? I decided I like this trade. So when it actually broke below, I dropped my order in. You can see right at the lows of this candle, came back, picked me up, then it flushed down. It happened similar to the previous trade. It moves down, gives me a 1 point scalp. I drag my stop down to one tick below my entry, and then I was going to go move my runner to be much further to try to milk the trade for more, and it immediately drops down and stops me out 3 points. So not to complain, but I was hoping I could have just rode this down. But as you can see, look at the timestamp. This is happening within about 2 to 3 minutes. So if there's something news or something that happened that caused this flush, and prices continue moving, it gets a little spindly, meaning there's just these big wicks. So it's the first entry short, pullback, second entry short. I don't like this signal bar. Again, I wasn't too sure. So initially, this trend line looked like it was working pretty well. It helped make the argument that it's a break of this potential channel moving back in, but now it's breaking a second time, so I'm extra cautious. Kind of moves sideways, creates this second entry short triple test. So it's a new low, it's a first entry short pullback, second entry short, but there's a localized low here. It's a first entry short pullback, second entry short. There is a triple test here, one attempt, two attempt, three attempt, marked by this blue line, which I thought maybe the range is starting here. Like this is the start of a potential range. I like that there's a decent signal bar. There's triple test, enough room for the test of the low. I, I already had two positive trades on kind of a whippy day that I thought, okay, I'm not going to try to tempt fate, but I think there's a possible trade here. Turns out it would have worked. It gets just rangy here, and it creates a second entry long failed second entry short. So this is arguably, not arguably, this is a localized high. You have a first entry long pullback. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. First entry long pullback, second entry long. Go ahead and scoot it back. Second entry long, and a new low, first entry short, pullback, second entry short. The thing is, it's going to be buying right into what I think is, at the time, the high of a range. So I'm not going to take that trade. And that's why I call it an almost trade. Ends up it would have worked. As it hits the high, that I'm thinking is the actual range. And later I established it there, right up here. Because it looks like it starts here, small little breaks here, but it looks like it's respecting this. So I'm expecting prices to come back down to the low side support. It kind of takes a little bit of time, but it does make it back down here. It doesn't quite touch. It's back to the high side. So I'm just thinking it's ping-ponging between this range. Small breakout turns into a more decisive breakout. And as it pushes up, you don't really have any clean second entries. Things are just a little bit noisy. You have a new high. It's a first entry long pullback. Technically, you have a second entry long here. Break of this orange down channel is tested low, but this isn't a really good signal bar. Which gets noisy, pushes back up to the high. It was at this point, this right here in real time, is when I established this gray channel. But again, this is so late in the day, it didn't really help. I thought, okay, it's one touch, two touch. Technically, you have a third touch, a fourth touch confirmation. So knowing that prices are moving in this gray down channel isn't really that important at this time of day because it's clearly already, before I even drew it, you can already tell it's kind of on a sell-off. So just wanted to show though, that's how I kind of came up with that. Continues moving. Unfortunately, there was no real way to use this as a key entry point because there was no trade setup. Pushes down, gets noisy here, creates a first entry short pullback. You technically have a second entry short. You could say it's a failed breakout of this larger gray one. You could say it's two legs up, and you could use this as a first entry short, second entry short. The thing I didn't like was is an inside bar to this. If it at least ticked one tick above and then pushed down, maybe. But ideally, I wanted to see this continue down and create a lower high. You don't get that lower high. It kind of pushes back up a second time. Pushes down on this orange down channel. And this is going into the last 10 minutes, so definitely wasn't going to take a trade there. But as you can see, is a break of this yellow down, break of this orange down channel, two tests down, kind of consolidates. And then you could tell from this 12:59 and all the way over to here is about 1 o'clock Pacific Standard. This is all the price action, which is quite a bit of volume flushing through in the last minute. And I don't want to be caught in that, especially even here with the last 10 minutes. So it wasn't the most at least for me, the most obvious day because there were areas that it was hard for me to tell what was a clean support area and what was a clean resistance area. So I ended up drawing a lot of these short and trend channels. So it ended up being, I wouldn't say the most challenging day, but it wasn't the most obvious. So hopefully that was helpful.